If you call Israel a democracy, it might be to some extent. It's very, very prejudiced democracy, but you can call it that if you want. But it's not an independent country. Israel is not an independent country. It's completely entangled with the Western, and especially American, military, industrial, political, news, media, corporate complex. You can't take any of those words out of there. I usually leave the military part out because it's just corporations making money by influenced politicians, and politicians being so clueless on almost all levels. And maybe they are getting paid, some of them. Maybe it is corruption. And certainly in Israel there's going to be corruption. Sure of that. Netanyahu is not a trustworthy guy. He's been taken to court for corruption a couple of times. He won. He didn't get... The prosecutors lost, but still, this guy's the richest politician, one of the richest politicians in the whole of the Middle East. But Israel's not an independent country. It's a pawn in a game, right? So it's integrated into this vast Western and American, especially American, military, industrial, political, news, media, corporate complex, right? It is a pawn in the game of the Middle East. The US military is the biggest fossil fuel burner on the planet as a single entity, and they need the oil. They're not just going to sit around and say, oh, we might run out of oil in a couple of years, but we'll be all right. No, they have a rationale. Theirs is, we're important to the world, to America and to the world. We're going to promote freedom around the world. We've got the biggest military in the world, and we're taking it off a national debt, by the way, and putting this generation, not the next generation, the millennials and the Zoomers, into debt that they'll never pay off. And not only that, I mean, I'm not talking about student loans here. I'm talking about the national debt in which $1 trillion or more per year goes to this massive, the world's biggest military, which I consider most of it kind of useless. It's just money for the corporations, the manufacturers, the arms manufacturers, all those people, all those different mostly American corporations. So the money goes back to American corporations. The people don't seem to do that well out of it. In the whole system, the super rich are richer than ever before. The gap between super rich and the poor is bigger than it's ever been in America. And maybe for a very long time, because the super rich are so rich, some of the super rich today, Americans, could literally buy another country if they wanted, almost, and certainly influence it. And they do. But if you think about the size of the military, US military, it needs the oil, it needs to look ahead for the oil for 30 years ahead. And everyone knows this. So guess what? They've found out, we've all found out, that there's oil under Gaza. There's gas off the coast of Gaza. Okay, the Gazans can't access it. They don't have the money, the equipment, or the ability. Israel blocks. There are ports in Gaza. Israel blockades them permanently, right? There's nothing they could do to access the oil. They don't have the money to put in oil wells. And so eventually some company will come along, Western corporation no doubt, and we'll say, well, we'll take the oil and we'll build you some schools and we'll take the profits for ourselves. That's what they'll do. Eventually, I'm not saying that's why this is going on right now, but there is a US aircraft carrier off the coast there. And to me, if you're looking at it from this point of view, it's saying, this is our oil, a giant aircraft carrier. It's kind of what it's saying in some people's minds. It would be, right? But I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there's quagmire and Israel is not an independent country. So blaming it on Israel is a fool's errand. Until everybody who's making videos or news reports, any kind of reports, has to start with, of course, this is all part of the military and the Western military industrial complex, as Israel is a pawn in the game of the Middle East oil resources and gas resources. And Saudi Arabia is a bit of a pawn as well, but they keep out of trouble, right? So a very, very non-democratic place as far as I can tell. So I don't go for this anymore about blame. I do think many of the things that were said about Hamas were lies. You can see it, you can prove it. Some of the stuff coming out of the IDF are just made up, even staged, some of it looks like. So I would not go believing everything you hear. Very important that people break out of this brainwashing that comes on you. Every year there's a major thing that comes upon you. And if you pay attention to the news, it's brainwashing you, especially when it comes to wars, but also other things. And some people just ignore the news. If you can, that's great. There are some situations that directly affect you personally. So it's not possible to really ignore the news and what's going on in these big, big events and topics and wars and whatever it is. So because Israel and of course Palestine, all of it, everywhere, is sort of subservient to this giant military political complex, then you can easily make the case that, well, it's for sure that Israel is not an independent country at all. It's a pawn in a game. And the only reason I'm making this because most people are in, it doesn't matter where I look, most people and news organizations, news outlets and social media, superstars, whatever, in the news, appear to just see it one-sided. You're either on Israel's side or you're on Hamas side, as they put it. Well, I'm not on a side because I'm seeing a lot of lies going on everywhere, and all of it is the antithesis of the Israel that I experienced in 1986, and therefore I'm in a position to say that is not an independent country. Where that went from a very hopeful place in 1986 to where it is today, that literally happened because Israel is a pawn in a game. And I will make another video about some politicians that have said the same thing, prominent ones, but they don't realize that. The only one that, I'm not going to get into different politicians, yeah, sorry, no, I'm not going there. I'll maybe talk about that in another video if somebody asks me, but so the point there is that it is intertwined with this military-industrial corporate complex and the US military that gets its money from the sky. Fairy dust. That money doesn't exist. They're just printing money to keep this biggest military that everybody should be afraid of, so that they can bully us around the world. Occasionally they have a good reason for that. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are some. But there's so many blunders from the US military, they just look like war crimes to me for decades now, including the Vietnam War, which I was not a compos mentis about that at the time as a kid, little kid, but other ones you can see quite clearly. And so it's all designed to get the populace behind them so that the so-called, what's it called? The fourth estate, or is it the fifth estate? I don't know, I'm not American. The media, the news, newspapers, as we used to call them, the news media, TV, all that. The fourth estate, whatever that's called, fifth estate, let me know in the comments. But this doesn't exist. It's a joke. So anybody saying, oh, we must preserve the fourth estate, no, we mustn't. They're actually the enemies of the people these days if you look properly at it. So, yeah, and they're intertwined with political action. So I'm not for the fourth estate, whatever that is. Fifth branch of government, whatever it's called. Used to be. I used to like the mainstream news, not the TV. I never liked TV, but newspapers. But I think they're all utter, blunderously full clowns. All of them. To me, every single person that writes for a major news outlet or is on TV is literally, a glorified blogger. Just putting out their own opinion there, or being told what to say by higher powers higher than them, meaning the government in some cases. So if you believe that nonsense, this propaganda that comes out every single time on every single major topic, you are hypnotized, and sorry, there's no other way to put this. I can never see a time when they'll come out of this mental insanity. That's what it is. It is a mental illness. And of course, they're human beings, and human beings are part of all of us. We're all part of that. So, of course, we love them on some level, but I look at society now, people, and think you're a bunch of idiots. Why would I care? You're so mad. Mass hysteria, anger, tribalism. And on this topic, it seems to be fascinating the way that it has blown up into this tribalism, which is breaking down the other allegiances. Each tribal member had other allegiances on other topics, but they're all broken too. So these allegiances are getting smaller and smaller and more vicious. On this particular topic, Israel-Gaza, they've gone mad. Everybody, even people I admire, some social media people who have done a great job on other things, have just lost it with the tribalism. They might be right. I still follow them because they're really good on some topics, right? But I feel like they're sort of mad in this tribalism when it's not a tribal competition here. It's these pawns in a game in the Middle East being ruled by this massive debt that's hanging over everybody's heads now in America. $35 trillion and going up by trillions a year now. Military getting a big chunk of that to build obsolete things like aircraft carriers. That is an obsolete device. Boom! That can be taken out in a nanosecond by any competent military these days. So, I don't care what anti-missile shields you've got or anything. It's all childish. Modern warfare, the idea of it now is just childish, and we're going to change all that and demonstrate that we can change it pretty soon, and all by peaceful methods. So I'll talk about that in another video, the solutions to all this. But right now, people talking about it, I'm talking about experts, journalists, social media, intellectual commentary. You cannot talk about this topic unless you, every single time, at least say, of course, this is just all part of a military-industrial, corporate, political media, news media complex. Israel is just a pawn in a game. It's not their fault. It's not Palestine's fault or even Hamas's fault. And there was war propaganda up the wazoo yet again that people are still brainwashed with. The first thing that people hear on a major topic like this, intense topic that makes it across the news, and it's almost, oh wow, we're on the point of World War III. Now that scares people, anything like that. Or, oh, I know Jewish friends in Israel. Oh no. So everything, or I am Jewish, whatever. It all creates this PTS, this mass hysteria, fear, the amygdala in the brain fire off, flight or fight response. And for many, with this constant mass hysteria going on for years and decades now, especially since Trump got elected, by the way, mass hysteria, madness, and this amygdala, eventually you do that again and again and again over time, the fear centers of the brain don't switch off. They're useful, but they're not supposed to just be there, be alerted all the time, as if there's a lion coming at you, a tiger coming at you all the time, right? That's what they get, and so they get PTSD. Now everybody's got it, all sides, and they can't talk about this except in tribalistic ways. So that's the main point. I probably missed some other points. This video was too long. I can't help it. There's no other way. Hopefully you got the point. Do not talk about this on social media or in the press or the mainstream news media. If anybody ever hears this, don't talk about it unless you're going to talk about it as the fact that it is intertwined and entangled with a system which has sort of built itself up to this wholeness that's more than the sum of its parts of destructive activities around the world. And that's the US military, corporate military, industrial, political complex that is all bought and paid for by the Gen Xers. Sorry, not I'm the Gen X, only just made it into Gen X. Punk rock, UK, teenager. That's Gen X. So it's going to affect the Zoomers and the Millennials. Already is. All the money's gone to the super rich and to the boomers. This is a horrible situation for many people, and that money, trillions a year, goes to this military, of which Israel is just a pawn to that. Get that in your head. This is possibly just about oil, but even if it isn't, it's about stupid people in stupid politics, stupid politicians, and their delusional state, especially after Ukraine, which they've lost. Russia was never trying to take over the whole of Ukraine, top of the government, and put everyone at gunpoint. It was just after those eastern provinces, and they've taken them, and they will hold them. So these people still in power from that, in America and elsewhere, are in a delusional state, and they're delusional about this too. The whole thing that's happened in Israel is due to the US mostly, and Western, but mostly US. You know, the British have a part to play way back, right? But talking about current times, the US military, industrial, political complex and their hegemonic rule around the world, and their arrogance and complete blindness and delusion about other countries and paranoia about China and Russia and all that, right? So that's it. Don't talk about it unless you're going to mention it's nothing to do with Israel. They're a pawn to the American military, industrial, political, news media complex. All right? So that's the main point there. Think about it and understand it, and don't let anybody get away with blaming Israel or Palestine or Hamas or Gaza, right? Or Arabs. They're just pawns in a game. Don't let anybody get away with that. Okay, bye.